For business, when I go, it's I have an agenda, I have a mission to accomplish, right? So I'm there. It's a little bit more intimate. Where I'm eating with the locals and drinking with the locals, and we're working together all day. So it's a little different vibe. I enjoy working in Asia. I think
Mm.
everyone works hard and then enjoys the non-working time.
Okay, welcome to another episode of Navigating the Rise. Today I have this awesome guest called Ken Randall. He's a professional, experienced product manager and a business development um, uh, expert individual. So I'll let him briefly describe his background before we continue the show.
All right. Hey, George. So a little bit background. My career actually started in U.S. Navy, so ex-military, electromechanics and weapons. It was an aviation ordnance. Then I did some time working in IT during the dot-com boom. Um, and then I would say after that, I went into product development and product management, focusing on LCD TVs, consumer electronics. Did that for about 8 years. Then I went into mobile devices and tablets and software at a tech startup called Fuhu that eventually was acquired by Mattel. So I did a couple of years in kids tech. After that, I went to Sharp and Flying Eagle, where we met George, doing a couple of years
Yes.
there in product marketing, product development, product management. But most of my career, I would say over the last 16, 17 years, has been going between leading product development teams, product management, or product marketing. That's my sweet spot. That's what I enjoy doing. Whether it's in a startup space or in growth companies, I find a fit in either one. I enjoy it. So my current iteration, I'm with Head Technologies. It's a audio technology startup, and I'm doing the same thing, helping this company build awesome new products.
Cool. So I'm sure a lot of listeners will be very curious about your relationship with Asia in general. Can you talk a little bit about your on a
Um,
personal, professional side?
well, so actually, my first time out of the country was in Asia. So I joined the military right after high school. I did most of my college in the military and then finished up after. But I was stationed on the USS Nimitz aircraft carrier, and the whole time we patrolled Asia. So from 18 years old, I spent most of my years from 18 to 21 all over Asia. I mean, Philippines, Thailand, Singapore, Hong Kong, Japan, Korea, you name it. So that's those kind of coming of age years. I spent them all in Asia. So that's kind of
Whoa.
personal life. And then my professional life and my career, because I was working in electronics, consumer electronics, all of the production and R&D and development was always in Taiwan or China. So I spent most of my professional working career after military also in Asia, same countries. So that's my experience traveling all of the Asian countries. Personally, I have a Chinese wife. Uh, 20. Let's see, we've been together 24 years, married 18 years,
Cool.
and we have
So
three kids. And we have three kids,
3 kids,
three daughters. Yes.
and then a son on the way, right?
No, we're done. Only boy in the house outside of me is my dog.
Okay.
But
So cool.
well,
So
so
since
my
you're
wife, it should be interesting. My wife is actually, I'm more Asian than my wife because she's American born, the
oh
ABC.
really? But
Yeah,
how's it you're more Asian than your wife?
she's born and raised in Pasadena.
Yeah.
She's Hong Kongese, her parents, so
Uh-huh.
she speaks Cantonese and has the traditional Chinese upbringing mixed with American, but she's never traveled Asia outside of one trip we took on holiday to Thailand.
Interesting. So can you tell me more about like the different mindset that you acquired? And you should mention you're like more Asian than your wife.
Just in the kind of the differences between the Asian cultures, Taiwan and mainland China, Korea, Japan. She has no clue that there's just very subtle cultural differences between. I mean, she understands there are different cultures, they speak different languages, eat different food, but there's just subtle cultural differences, personal differences, things that if you travel Asia a lot, or if you are from one of those Asian countries, you understand those subtle differences, even in behaviors, right? And norms. They're just slight differences, not good or bad. They're just differences. And unless you are Asian or travel frequently in Asian cultures, you may not catch those subtle differences.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what are something that you notice from your perspective? That's some of the subtle differences.
Well, I tend to be very in tune to things that are respectful or disrespectful. So I like to make sure when I'm in someone else's country that I am following their customs and their norms. You know what I mean? So, and also because I manage projects between different countries, I have to deal with a lot of politics between like Taiwanese coworkers and mainland Chinese coworkers that may have some tension, or the Taiwanese guys may appear superior to the mainland Chinese guys. And so you have to manage that to get the project done. You have Taiwanese guys that are managers in mainland China, and they're trying to control a team of mainland Chinese guys. So I try to just navigate the politics very well and be careful not to disrespect anyone on anyone's grounds.
Interesting.
That's the only way I can get my job done right.
So you mentioned that basically a lot of it comes from your exposure.
Exposure, yeah.
From professionally, or did it start from personally?
Professionally.
Professionally. So you also mentioned about working with the military, traveling to this area, and in the private sector as well. Do you notice a difference when you're interacting with a different Asian culture professionally between with the military and the private sector?
It was quite different. In the military, it was like a spectacle because we would arrive with so much fanfare to these foreign countries and we'd be in uniform. And so I'm probably on thousands of pictures holding little Asian babies, with my uniform on. So it was different doing business there than just being there as a military liaison, and just because we weren't there on official like war business, right? Usually these ports are friendly ports that the US have contracts with. So you dock, we buy our supplies, and you'll stay for about a week. And so while the ship is there for that week, and it's not one ship, it's usually about 7 ships, we all travel together. So when that ship docks at a port, say Hong Kong, you're there from a week to 10 days. So during that time, there's lots of events that have been pre-coordinated for the US visit. So there's if you're in uniform, you can get a free drink at a bar, you can get a free meal at a restaurant.
Really? Can borrow uniform?
There's laws against that. It's quite different. Definitely quite different.
So can I just buy go to Halloween a costume or uniform? Is that okay too? That's not against the rule, right?
Cannot intimidate law enforcement or military. But actually, it's a little different now. You got to remember that was early '90s that I was in the military. So, like for instance, after 1997, the U.S. military doesn't pull ships into Hong Kong anymore. Once the British handed over to China, right? Philippines, we gave the base back to the Philippines, also in mid '90s. So there's no more deployments in the Philippines, but Singapore, Thailand, those are still, Japan, Korea, those are still popular places because there's US military in Japan and in Korea. You've traveled to both. So, there's quite a bit of military there.
Okay. Cool. So that also brings me a really interesting question, because when you're actually, you mentioned one's a spectacle, but what about the other part where you mentioned on the private sector?
Just being there for business and
how's that different?
That because it's a little bit more intimate. I'm not just like a tourist, or I'm not part of this big military pomp and circumstance festival. I'm there to accomplish a mission with the company. Well, let's say I've been there as a tourist, just visiting, non-military, but like having a holiday. And that's different because every Asian country I've ever been to is very welcoming to tourists. So if I'm on holiday there, it's very relaxed. My guard is down. I'm enjoying the local culture, just being a tourist and treated very well. For business, when I go, it's I have an agenda, I have a mission to accomplish, right? So I'm there. It's a little bit more intimate. Where I'm eating with the locals and drinking with the locals, and we're working together all day. So it's a little different vibe. I enjoy working in Asia. I think
Mm,
everyone works hard and then enjoys the non-working time.
got it. Got it. Cool. So basically, so from a business perspective, uh, what have you noticed? What kind of insight did you gain from when you were in military, and what insight have you gained when you're working in the business side, the more intimate setting?
I think I've gained more insight in business than in the military.
Okay.
In the military, everything is so structured, right? Before the days leading up to arriving in the foreign country, you actually go through a training. So let's say you're going to land in Singapore. So a couple of days before, you go to a seminar, you learn all the rules and regulations and policies and cultural norms about that country. So that if you get in trouble, you will be you cannot say I didn't know, right?
Uh,
So everything is controlled for the soldiers. So for the most part, military very well behaved when they're in foreign countries, except for people who get a little too drunk. I'm sure you heard about that in Japan and Korea, especially. It's notorious for the American military guys to just have a little bit too much to drink, get into fights with the locals, or get in trouble with the girls. Um, I was a nerdy guy, so I didn't have any problems with that.
cool.
But yeah, again, I didn't interact a lot personally when I was in the military. It was mostly other military friends. We took tours, we went to bars, we went to restaurants. That was it. Sightseeing. For business, it's more. I mean, I've been to friends' homes there, right, where we've eaten together, in people's houses. I've been to restaurants. I've met family. I've met their kids. So it's a lot different. I still have friends that 15 years ago we did a project together, and if I show up in Taiwan, I can still call them and go hang out with their wife and kids and them and have dinner and things like that. So I have much more lasting relationships throughout Asia from business than I did from the military.
Got it. So kind of from the outside looking in, as a non-Asian looking into Asian culture, what are some of the biggest things that surprised you?
I don't know if you can say surprise me because my entire business reference has been with Asia, so I
Okay.
didn't have anything to compare it to. Now I will tell you, more recently I've been working a lot with Europe.
Uh-huh.
My current company has a R&D team in Europe, and I think that is definitely there's some big differences. The the,
Okay.
the European style is much more laid back, very detailed in the work they do, but much more relaxed in the work environment
Okay.
versus China style, right? It's very structured, organized, time sensitive. You just work. It needs to get done yesterday, so do it, do it, do it, and everyone is kind of on the same wavelength. And now that I have projects that mix my European R&D with China R&D, it's it's just interesting to sit back and watch. I mean, the project's moving forward, but it's just two different vibes. One is very laid back, very precision, and we're going to check it and check it again and then check it one more time before we, close that action item. And China's like going crazy. No, 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 no. We need to do this right now. So it's definitely a big difference. And it's interesting because my European team is quite mixed. There's French, German, Swiss, Italian. There are all these different Europeans, but they are all kind of the same. So that's a big difference.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So that was. Do you have any specific examples that involves that where you see the differences? You mentioned about the timeline, one is structured, one is being time sensitive, one is more laid back. But is there any
Yeah.
specific example that you can think of that really highlight the differences between the Western and Asian culture?
No, there's not a specific example. As specific as I can get, I mean, without like digging deep into my project details,
Uh-huh.
that exact example I gave you is my Euro team will check and double check and triple check because they function on precision, right? If you look at German cars, Swiss
Yeah.
watches, they're very meticulous, they're very detailed. You cannot do that if time is your priority.
Yeah.
But if you come from a manufacturing background in China, time is your resource, right? It's about time to market, it's about speed, it's about production, it's about mass volume. So inherently, the two styles are just different.
Okay.
Right? So it's not bad, it's just different. And my job is to manage through it and get my project to market and
Interesting.
be sensitive to both sides.
Got it. So what
Right? In the end, I
about
have to think about the customer, right? What's best for the customer. So I have to put the best product out in the right time at the right cost.
so are there anything about see that's on a personal front that basically got like a takeaway from you. So business wise, so you weren't that surprised because that's how you were basically all exposed
My
to.
whole working life has been dealing with
Yeah.
Asia.
So, but once you get to know them on a personal level, were there any personal cultural nuances that basically uh, challenged your paradigm or changed you or surprised you?
Um, I would say some of the things that have surprised me just on a personal level is, and it kind of relates to one of your earlier podcasts, the upbringing and the
Uh-huh.
family control.
Oh,
That was kind of new to me because for my wife and her Chinese American family, while they are kind of prideful and go to school and get education and work hard and all those things, what I learned from my friends who are actually from mainland China or Taiwan or Korea, Japan, it's a whole nother level that I didn't even understand. I mean, very, very strict, parents controlling what major you pick, what school you're going to go to. I have friends that the parent decided what neighborhood you can buy your house in. I mean, that to me was shocking. Very, very shocking.
I
Because
see.
that is so 180 from American culture, especially the way you raise sons, right? You raise sons, just be independent, be strong, make decisions, go
Uh-huh.
out and learn, and then take over the world. And then
Wow.
some of the guys I know in Asia is completely different. It's like, no, you need to do this major because that's the good major right now. And that's what, your cousin did or something, and they make good money. And so grandma says you have to do that, you have to do that.
Cool. Yeah. So with that differences, how do you? What kind of challenge? What kind of things you mentioned that that makes you more aware of now when it comes to doing business? Did that affect you in any way at the business front?
Um, I'm trying to see how to word this. I don't know if it affected me, but it made me sensitive to the situation of how they approach leadership.
Oh, please explain
Where,
more.
well, so let's say within a team dynamic, within an organization, and there's a very senior leader. What I do notice is that if that senior leader has made a set of instructions, this is what we want to accomplish, this is how I want things done. Even if someone lower down the line knows that that's inefficient or it might be wrong or might not be the best way, they very rarely will challenge that.
Uh-huh.
My conclusion is that's probably because of the upbringing. You just don't challenge the authority, right? So
Yeah, it's considered rude.
it's considered rude, right? That
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. I've heard people tell me, well, we'll be in a meeting. I'm like, hey, why didn't you tell the boss that? I go, no, 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 we can't. You can't say that. And in my mind, why not? Right?
Yeah.
But it's true. It's considered rude. So I did learn those things, but then I could one-to-one with a boss being the American, then have that conversation alone. So it's not, in an open forum.
Yeah.
Right. So I've learned to do those things like, oh, hang on a second, and then I'll go catch the boss in his office alone and have a side conversation. So it's not in front of the whole team or the whole staff, and he doesn't feel challenged or disrespectful. And I've never had a problem with that process. It was always well received and appreciated.
Yeah, I think it comes up with like saving face too. If you tell someone they're doing bad in front of other people, they become
Correct.
very shameful. It's like when
Correct.
McDonald's tried to run an ad of a Chinese man in China begging the Ronald McDonald for coupons to go to McDonald's. That was like really bad.
Oh my, wow.
Yeah, so that's how they first opened China, where it had a commercial, and they know that people in China loves deals, right? So they
Yeah.
institute a coupon policy, but the commercial was showing a Chinese man on the ground kneeling and begging for the coupons to be handed to him.
Oh, that was bad. So that's just insensitive. That was that was bad PR. Whoever was in charge of that.
No, I think
So
it was they know a little bit, but not the whole thing. So that little bit was too dangerous. They thought they knew everything, and then so that becomes. Yeah, I think knowing a little bit is maybe might be worse than knowing all of it.
I agree with that.
So from that perspective, now kind of down it back a little bit now. So from your experience, both in the private and the military, have that how have your exposure to the Asian culture influences on a personal or professional front impacted you now on the personal level?
Um, I do find myself an advisor to some some of my Asian friends, even older that should be like my father's age. Um, I've had some older colleagues that I've watched their kids grow up, and now they're you know college or done with college and starting families, and they would just see my demeanor in life and would always pull me aside and ask me questions or consult. My son won't listen to me. He wants to do this. What is your advice? And they would want my advice on what to do. And actually, it's been quite a few times throughout my life. I have had older Asian guys. I guess because they were immigrated here, and their kids are first generation born American. So they're forcing the traditional Chinese principles upon them, and it's being resisted by the kids.
Yeah,
And so they would want to hear my perspective as someone growing up in America. How did you grow up? How did you deal with this with your parents? And so I would like to think I've really helped quite a few friends and their kids through some interesting times.
interesting. So you're saying so that's on there how people actually are asking you for your advice. But how about you when
Yeah.
you're dealing with your family, your kids, and even the future work?
Um, I think they have a pretty good balance of the family respect structure of the Chinese culture, and that kind of independence and follow your destiny of the American culture. So I'm raising my daughters to they must be free thinkers, strong-willed, go after what you love. Don't let me tell you what to do. But I encourage them to explore, to learn, to fail. If you don't like something, learn that you don't like it and move on. I'm always going to be there to support them. So I'm not trying to say you must be a lawyer, you must be an accountant. I've seen the trauma of friends like that are in jobs that they just have no desire to be in. But their parents said, you have to take this major at this school. And they had no interest in that major, no interest in that career path. And I've just seen the hurt in their eyes and in their face. So I wouldn't want to put my kids through that. But
Yeah,
they still have to earn a living. They still have to take care
yeah,
of themselves. They have, you know what I mean? So I'm not so relaxed and liberal that I'm gonna say, oh, go be, a
artist.
basket weaving major or something like that. No,
Yeah,
that's not gonna happen. Right. But I've raised them enough from being young to understand you have to support yourself and you have to do something that is financially stable and personally rewarding and contributes to society. If you want to be an artist or musician or dancer, great. That's your hobby,
mm.
right? That's your hobby. You got to earn a living. Don't worry about taking care of your parents. We'll be all right. We don't need anyone to take care of us. Learn how to take care of
Whoa.
yourself.
So how that's interesting. So would you say that you're mixing the the Western culture and the Asian culture together then?
Absolutely. Yes.
Because the Asians very focused on the financial, logical, practical stuff, and the Western, I mean, that is there too, but it's more about focusing on doing what you love. So I'm curious
Yeah.
about what parts have you integrated and what parts have you modified to make those work?
Modified.
If you did any modification.
I don't think I did any modifications. I think I just drew a line. I'm an engineer. I just wrote a spec and I drew a line and said, these things are in, these things are out. So
Uh,
it's kind of like,
so
imagine an imaginary line and said, here are all the, kind of Asian culture principles. And on this side, here are all the American culture principles. Pick the things I like from both and put them in a pot. And
so
that's
what is that you like they put in a pot? What are things they didn't like for either of the culture and you just kind
so
of threw it away?
I would not, the part I do not like and I would not do is force my kids into something that is not natural to them, right? Like I would not tell, for instance, my oldest daughter, you have to be an accountant because she's not great at math. She gets good grades. She's an honor roll student, but she struggles at math. So she really, really works hard to maintain those good grades in math. Now, my middle daughter, she's amazing at math. No problem, 4 point something GPA, she's, perfect. So you get what I'm saying? I would not force her to say, you need to be an accountant because I know that math is hard for her, right? So I'm always having conversations with my kids, asking them what they like, what did they do, what's your desires. I'm always extracting that. I'm not putting things into them. The things I'm putting into them are things like work hard, be respectful, always keep your eyes open for what your passions are. So you see, it's a different avenue. I'm not putting into them, you must do these things, except for principles. You must be honest and upstanding and hardworking and disciplined, those things. But then I don't top it off with, and you must be a doctor.
Yeah.
No.
There's a one guy, Asian guy that's been popular on social media. He's a doctor. What's it called? What's that? The thing in Navy, the special forces. What's it called?
Navy SEAL.
Navy. So he's a Navy SEAL. He's a doctor, and he's going to be an astronaut.
Oh yeah, I know. It's going to be the first Asian astronaut.
Yes, but he's
for America. Yeah,
he,
I know. I watch a lot of his stuff online. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so he
Brilliant
achieved
guy.
the Asian what you want to call it, parents film of being a what you
Except
want
being in the
doctor.
military, that's not usually desirable for Asian
Yeah,
families.
but he's Navy SEAL. I was like, oh my god, right? And then I heard a lot of work to get there, and
Navy
then
SEAL is a lot of work.
yeah, and now he's qualified to be an astronaut. It's like he's like breaking everything down.
Yeah,
So
very cool.
yeah, so we have a joke that basically says that no matter how successful we become, if our parents found out about him, they'll compare us to him.
Go be an astronaut. All of a sudden, every Asian wants their kid to go be an astronaut.
No, they'll be like, go be all of them. Go be a Navy SEAL, a doctor, and an astronaut. Like, yeah.
Unfortunately, being a Navy SEAL is a lot more than just what you want to do. Navy SEAL is, yes, one is you can desire to be a Navy SEAL, but two, there is a physical requirement, a mental requirement that just it may not be physically possible. Not everyone can do that. There's medical requirements that not everyone can pass. So you might just say, I'm the smartest guy in my school. I go to Ivy League, smartest guy in Ivy League. And then you say, okay, I'm going to go be a SEAL. Oh, no, because your heart beats at the wrong, beats per second on average. Sorry, disqualified. It can be something that simple. Right. So it's not just that you want to be a Navy SEAL and you're physically fit and you're smart. You have to, there's a lot of requirements to be a Navy SEAL. The psychological profile is also pretty tough.
Got it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yes.
Okay, so another thing that kind of came to mind while we were talking, you mentioned, so you mentioned about not forcing can be something or not on the Chinese side or Asian side. What about on the Western side that I kind of threw out from those values?
Well, not throughout. I like the family structure and the respect and honor that is prevalent within the Asian family structure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really like that. That is, I mean, I think now, so you got to remember the American culture even breaks down further, right? There's Black Americans and Latino Americans.
Yeah.
So in the Black American culture, there's a very strict respect protocol within the family, right? It's very, very strict. White America may be a little looser. You've heard people, cuss at their parents, use profanity,
Oh
get
yeah,
drunk with their parents.
I saw that at the cruise. One of my cruise.
Yeah.
I was surprised. She was calling her mom a bitch, like in a joking way, of course. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm not giving you money, bitch. Right? I was like,
Yeah.
I was like,
that
what the frick?
that does not exist in the Black American household. If
Yeah.
it does, it's very rare. That does not exist. So we have strict rules of respect elders and things like that. Same with if you know any like Latino Americans, they also have very strict hierarchy of rules within the family. So I like that from the Asian side, and we instill that in our daughters. Respect for the elders and parents and things like that. So
Cool.
yeah.
So another thing
Well, I think they have a good mix.
Cool. So another thing, usually I end like toward the end of our episode when I end with a story of some sort, a quote in this case. So this quote is about seeds that are planted. So it basically talks about it's only a question of time. Sooner or later, the circle of truth spreads everywhere. So I'm curious about your thoughts and how that relates to your experience of doing various different things that basically come out later in the future, good or bad.
The circle of truth spreads everywhere.
Yeah.
Wow, that's deep. Well, I would say my truth that spreads everywhere is what you put into society, whether it's into your family, into your circle of friends, into your career, comes back to you. And so I believe in putting in the absolute best, 100%. I give more without looking to receive. And I can just tell you throughout my life, the return has been much greater than what I've given.
Interesting. That's your model. Cool.
Yeah.
That's good.
Give and don't expect anything in return.
Give and don't expect. But what about the ones you are what I agree with the model completely, but there are some circumstances where I make exceptions. Well, I call them vampires.
I call them vampires too. Don't worry. You pay them off.
What does that mean?
You ever had someone, a friend in your circle or a family member, and they're always, kind of, I don't want to say they're like a low life, but maybe they always borrowing money or they always want something out of you. They either want your time or they want money or they want something. What I call pay them off. Oh, okay, here's that money. And then they go away because I know they're never going to pay me back. And I don't expect that return.
And
but
then,
I basically paid them to go away.
How's that work? So basically pay them, you know that they're not never pay you back.
Because they're too embarrassed to come back around and hang out because they know they owe you that money or they owe you that time because you helped them do something.
Really? You have never come across someone who has no shame and come back?
Nope.
Oh, interesting.
I have not.
I have one.
You're right. I call them vampires. I know them.
I had one. I had one. They were asking for certain things, and when I paid them off, thinking that they were not contacting me again, they come back again. And
Did they pay you back when they came back?
No, and ask for more things. And
then you have an out. You can say, "Hey, I already lent you that. You never gave it back to me. Go away."
He said, "Oh, don't worry. I'll pay you back after this together."
Set rules and boundaries.
Yeah, so I said no, but they came back. They actually will come back. Well, some of them will come back. Like one person in my life came back and tried to like explain why it's gonna be fine, and then I was like, no.
Set boundaries, set rules. Don't care for me, my most valuable asset is time. So if I help somebody, whatever, repair something at your house or move in or something like that, and I give an entire Saturday to you, that's more important to me than money. I'd rather give you money, but if you needed my time to help you and I cherish my time and I helped you, fix something at your house or whatever, I want that back at some point. I might need help. And if you choose, maybe I ask you once, maybe I ask you twice, and then I'll never ask you for anything else again. And in my opinion, you're gone. And the next time you say, hey, Ken, you think you can help me? I said, dude, I asked you 3 or 4 times to help me do something. You never helped me do anything. No, get off my phone.
Hey.
Because at that point, I have given something that was so valuable and you just trampled on it. So I have no problems in the world just erasing you out of my life.
Interesting.
And I will be very verbal. I am not a pushover.
Cool.
So that's how I handle the vampires.
The vampire. Okay, got it. Cool. All right. So I just want to summarize with our current episode. So we basically mentioned about there's 2 different sides with the understanding both from the professional and personal level. There's the military, from your professional has been on military and business, but you actually got more of the understanding from the business private sector on how the hierarchy works and how the information flow is work and what they prioritize on, which is time, getting things done, as opposed to quality, because of the traditional how certain countries are built up more on the manufacturing and industrial age as opposed to more service age. And then and you mentioned that you also integrate some of the Asian values into your family household, such as the way that making sure the family values are very important. And then, but at the same time, you make sure that the financial aspect of pursuing something is also important, but also keep the passion for pursuing something. And lastly, we mentioned about that planting seeds is that always give more than you hope to receive, but don't be a pushover with vampires.
Correct.
Am I missing anything, or should I anything you want to add?
That's a good summary.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you very much, Ken. Really happy to have you here.
Anytime. If you want to do another session, don't worry. I'm available.
Sounds good.